Hi, thanks for joining today's webinar. My name is David Stein. I'm a Storage Business Development Manager at AWS. And today I'm going to talk to you about reducing your total cost of ownership of your business critical applications with AWS file storage solutions. Cost reduction for legacy network attached storage or NAS-based applications is a big driver for moving to the cloud. AWS not only matches the existing features and functionality available for your file-based apps on premises, but also provides the added benefits of flexibility, performance, security, durability, and scalability of the cloud. Today, I'll be diving into the world of NAS and reducing costs for your application workloads with AWS file storage solutions, Amazon Elastic File System, or EFS, and Amazon FSx for Windows File Server. I'll walk through common use cases and scenarios to get the most out of your shared file storage deployments. Looking over the agenda, I'll start first by covering the major challenges of managing on-premises storage, then shift gears to go into more details about our AWS file storage portfolio, and then some of the most common use cases. I'll then talk through cost optimization scenarios, and finally, I'll wrap up with a summary of how to choose the right AWS storage for your use case. So let's talk about some of the challenges that you have when deploying and managing on-premises storage. On-premises storage solutions have a consistent set of challenges regardless of the technology being used, and it all boils down to time, cost, and complexity. First, there's a time element. It's not uncommon to see long procurement timelines, such as 3 to 6 months, to meet with various vendors, get proposals, get budget approved, and issue a purchase order. Implementation also may take several weeks or a few months, and sometimes the process took so long that the requirements changed and the hardware doesn't keep up with your new needs. Agility is one of the key benefits of using AWS. Our customers want to reduce their time to market, but also time to value, which allows you to provide value to the consumers of your applications quickly. Then there's cost, both for procuring the gear and also the unforeseen and sometimes hidden cost. You always need to consider the upfront capital investment, or CapEx, where you have high upfront capital investment. Then there's guesswork on how much storage you will need. You typically want a provision for peak capacity down the road, which involves a lot of guesswork on the types of drives, mix of drives, and then the additional costs for software, backups, and DR. There's also warranty renewals, and then data center costs such as power, space, and cooling. You don't have the instant as-needed scalability when you deploy on-prem hardware. You need to scale up. You'll have to pay more for your trays, racks, rooms, and data centers. This isn't easy. And how about the features you need, such as replication for DR and business continuity? And you find out you need to pay more just to enable some of the basic features you expect to be delivered as part of the product. I mentioned replication. What if that is a requirement? You may need to deploy the same infrastructure in another data center and use licensed products and tools to sync data between sites. Not only does this likely double the cost for hardware, but you'll need network, data center rack space, and you may need more staff, which all factors into the total cost. Now, let's say your team gets the funding and everything is deployed. Congratulations. However, you're not quite out of the woods yet. The third challenge our customers tell us about is complexity. You may need specialists to keep your environments online. And in cases where you need disaster recovery or high availability, you'll need to be sure your sites are highly secure and staffed with the right skills. So let's talk about that. What if there's an issue? An issue being maybe a type of hardware failure. Guess what? That means more time, cost, and complexity to get things up and running again. We've come so accustomed to these challenges that we often don't realize that there's an easy lift and shift alternative with AWS. Let's talk about that. CIOs tell us that cost is not the key factor in their decision to move to the cloud. Agility and innovation are usually at the center of their motivation. However, being at least cost neutral is table stakes before considering any migration to the cloud. We typically see at least 20% savings with just a lift and shift. Over the first months, customers continue to optimize their EC2 instances for an additional 10 to 20% savings. By adopting higher level services, customers further optimize, many seeing 60% or more savings. We'll go into some of the ways to optimize through our file storage solutions through our managed service offerings like Amazon EFS and FSx for Windows File Server. We have many storage services available to help you with all your IT solutions and application needs. This webinar will focus on NAS cloud file storage solutions for applications that require shared file storage. AWS has been helping enterprises on their cloud journey for almost 14 years. Moving storage workloads to the cloud has been one of the main ways CIOs have been able to address their top strategic priorities, such as increasing their organization's agility, accelerating their ability to innovate, strengthening their security, and reducing cost. Enterprises can be more agile as they scale resources up or down at any time and add new services in an instant. Innovation is accelerated by eliminating data silos and extracting more value from data by using machine learning and performing large-scale analytics. Security is strengthened as companies gain far more telemetry on their data when silos are erased, encryption controls are more advanced, and they inherit all of the controls, tools, and certifications designed for even the most security-conscious organizations. Finally, enterprises can reduce cost with a flexible buying model and the elimination of over-provisioning, refresh cycles, and the cost of maintaining storage and infrastructure. Cloud storage is far superior to the on-premises model and addresses the CIO's top priorities we covered on the previous slide. As I mentioned, we have a very broad and deep storage portfolio at AWS. Before diving into our file solutions, let's look at our major categories of storage, which are broken into block, file, and object. A block storage service, such as Amazon EBS, is ideal for applications and databases that have high performance, low latency requirements for dedicated application servers, databases, or compute nodes. For NAS file storage workloads, like what you get with Amazon EFS and Amazon FSx, is great when you have applications, users, or groups that are already using a standard network file sharing protocol to share data and need the flexibility and scalability of the cloud. Amazon FSx for Lustre is our high-performance file offering that integrates with S3 and is designed for fast processing workloads like HPC, machine learning, and media. And object storage with S3 is the other category, where objects are identified as a key in a flat space. This is perfect when you have the need to scale to large capacities and you want to take advantage of all the economies of scale and cost that cloud storage has to offer. An important distinction between file and object storage is that object storage is not file storage and not designed to be file storage. If you have file workloads requiring POSIX or SMB interfaces, or when you need multiple client access to the same file system and file consistency guarantees, object will not be a fit. Then lastly, we have hybrid solutions with AWS Storage Gateway and File Gateway for file systems, and we have lots of data transfer options with the Snow family of hardware solutions for migrating data into the cloud and data sync and transfer for SFTP for copying data to the cloud and within the cloud. And we can't forget AWS Backup, which is a managed service that provides a single interface, policies, and reporting for helping to manage your AWS backup task. I'll dive into these in a little more detail over the next handful of slides. So let's look at our fully managed cloud file systems. Companies often focus on lifting and shifting enterprise applications, like application servers that need shared file storage, containerized applications, large home directories, media workloads, and analytics systems to the cloud along with their storage. The vast majority of these applications don't need to be redesigned to run on AWS. AWS has solutions that let you lift and shift the workload as is, and then evolve at your own pace. For Linux workloads, you have Amazon EFS. For Windows applications, customers use Amazon FSx for Windows File Server, which is built on Windows Server. And then for high-performance workloads, customers use Amazon FSx for Lustre, which can provide an easy on-ramp to the cloud for HPC, machine learning, and data lakes with seamless integration with S3. Looking a little bit deeper, EFS allows you to easily share data between multiple applications, instances, and on-premises servers simultaneously using the NFS protocol. This allows you to achieve petabyte scale from a distributed design that allows the constraints or avoids the constraints imposed by traditional file servers. FSX for Windows is built on Windows Server using the SMB protocol with a native support for Windows file system features you use today. It uses SSD storage for high throughput, high IOPS, and low sub-millisecond latencies. And then FSX for Lustre, which is built on the highly popular open source parallel file system, Lustre, allows you to process data at hundreds of gigabytes per second with millions of IOPS, while also offering low sub-millisecond latencies. I thought it would be good to highlight some of the significant innovations and cost-saving features in our file storage portfolio that we've had over this last year. I won't go into all the details, but you'll be able to download and watch the presentation later if you want to read through them in more detail. On the file storage side of things, we've recently reduced the cost of our infrequent access storage class for Amazon EFS. We've also introduced direct integration with your on-prem Active Directory with Amazon FSX for Windows File Server, and we've also made it easier to get started with FSX for Lustre with a lower starting capacity. And we didn't stop there. We also added 2 new data transfer services with AWS Data Sync and AWS Transfer for SFTP. Now, let's look at some of the common use cases we see frequently taking advantage of the cloud. So there's a lot on here. I'll highlight a few though. When we talk about workloads, we often see things like application servers that need shared file storage. In the Windows world, these are .NET servers. Home directories, also known as user shares or department shares. We also see financial services for things like risk modeling. We see media and entertainment workflows like video rendering, encoding, transcoding. We see data lakes stored in S3 with file systems used to process the data. We see container storage that needs shared file storage between multiple containers. Database backups and logs are a great place to store on NFS storage like EFS. So there's a lot of different use cases that we see here across a variety of different verticals and a variety of different company sizes from large to small. So let's dive a little bit deeper into EFS. We talked about it briefly on the other slide, but let's dive into some of the main characteristics that customers look for. So to give you a little of background, we launched Amazon EFS in 2016 to provide customers with a fully managed service for providing a simple, scalable, and elastic file system for Linux-based workloads using the NFS protocol. EFS is great for a broad range of business applications and use cases. We mentioned some on the previous slide, but these are things like web serving, content management, media and entertainment workflows, big data analytics, container storage, database backups, and developer tools. Essentially, for most any Linux-based application that needs a scalable, durable, and highly available and high-performance file system, EFS is a great choice. It's elastic and scalable, meaning that it scales up and down as you add or remove files, no need to provision storage, giving you the storage you need when you need it. Your performance scales as your capacity grows, which, by the way, can scale to petabytes in a single file system. EFS has multiple performance characteristics. When you provision an EFS file system, you can choose between general purpose mode and max IO mode. You can configure your file system to best suit your needs. EFS also has 2 throughput modes. The default burst throughput mode is ideal for those spiky workloads that need higher performance, but only for short periods of time. And we also recently announced a second provision throughput mode this year that allows for applications that need a higher dedicated throughput than the default bursting mode provides. Provision throughput can be configured independent of the amount of data stored on the file system, so you get exactly the performance you need all the time. And just to put your mind at ease, for those of you with super demanding workloads, Amazon EFS can support performance of over 10 gigabytes per second and up to 500,000 IOPS. EFS also has 2 different storage classes. When we announced at reInvent 2018 last year a new infrequent access storage class and lifecycle management tool, it was designed to help you better optimize your EFS storage cost for files that you don't access every day. We call this EFS IA, or IA standing for infrequent access. You can start using EFS IA by simply creating a new file system and enabling lifecycle management. Once lifecycle management is enabled, EFS will automatically move files not accessed based on your policy from standard to EFS IA. This helps reduce your storage costs by up to 92%. EFS also supports shared access with up to thousands of connections from EC2 or on-premises servers if you use EFS over AWS Direct Connect or AWS VPN. EFS also offers the ability for your EC2 instances in another AWS account or in another VPC to access your file system, meaning you can now access your file system across AZs, regions, VPCs, and accounts. It's also highly available and durable. So we're designed to be highly available and durable as all files and directories are redundantly stored within and across multiple availability zones within a region to prevent data loss from any single component failure. This is all managed by us with nothing to do on your part. And then lastly, it's secure and compliant. So with EFS, you can securely access your files using your existing security infrastructure. You can control access with POSIX permissions, VPC access controls, and resource level permissions with identity and access management. You can also encrypt your data at rest and in transit. EFS also meets the needs of many eligibility and compliance requirements, such as FedRAMP, which we recently announced support for, helping you meet your regulatory needs. So let's dive a little bit deeper into EFS infrequent access. Customers have been eager to move more of their file system workloads to AWS. We've had the opportunity to talk to these customers and understand the many use cases and applications they're running. In addition to applications, customers using EFS to store things like backups, database backups, or log files that they don't access very often. Others upload shared documents or raw data for immediate analysis, and these files generally see frequent activity right after upload, but a pretty significant drop-off as this data ages over the coming days and weeks. With Amazon EFS's new pricing using the industry-accepted 80-20 rule, meaning 80% of your data is cold or not accessed very often, and 20% of your data is hot or actively used, you can now store petabytes of data in your cloud file systems at an effective price of just 8 cents per gigabyte per month. This saves you 92% compared to using just the standard EFS class. In these cases, customers still love the durability of EFS because the data is important. So that's that multi-AZ model that we talked about on the last slide. But because the data isn't used all that much and they're less concerned about speed and performance, a lot of times these customers move this data into a lower price storage option like an S3 storage class, but this takes a lot of work. And prior to EFSIA, to do that, they would have to transform their data and move it. So it adds complexity and time to your workflow. You could build scripts and workflows to automate some of this, but they told us they wanted an easier way. So EFSIA, infrequent access, does this, offering not only the 92% savings for infrequently accessed files, but also requires no change to your application. It's all done through EFS policies that you set in the console or through CLI, and leverages these lifecycle policies to automatically move the data to EFSIA. So let's look at how that looks in the console. It's super easy to get started. You simply create a file system and enable lifecycle management using the AWS command line interface, an API, or EFS management console. Here we're using the management console, and we'll click the policy that best suits our need to save that 92%. So here I'm going to enable files that have not been accessed for 14 days, move to the IA tier automatically. You can also choose a 30-day, 60-day, or a 90-day policy. A lifecycle management policy can also be enabled or changed for existing file systems navigating to the file system in the EFS console, where you can view the applied policy. You build this yourself using the building blocks, or you could build this yourself using the building blocks such as EC2 and EBS. And before EFS around, this was a common use case to get an NFS file storage. But however, doing this yourself takes a lot of administrative overhead and cost, including EC2 cost, EBS volume costs. You also can have inter-AZ data transfer cost. Additionally, you would need to create your own automation to lifecycle older data to another tier. All of this adds up. So let's look at a TCO example. As you can see here, we're using a 500 gigabyte data set, and we're going to assume that 20% of the data is going to be stored in the standard tier, and 80% of the colder files are stored in the infrequent access tier. And we're also going to assume that you access data in the IA storage class once per month. So you have $30 per month on the standard tier, $10 per month on the infrequent access tier, $4 per month on the infrequent access data request cost, bringing you to a total of $44 per month. Now, if you try to set this up yourself, you would need multiple compute nodes, which is $281 per month. You would need multiple storage volumes. If you're using EBS, you would use GP2 SSD for your tier 1, FC1 HDD for your lower infrequent access tier. So that adds an additional $48 per month, plus your inter-AZ data transfer cost to achieve that level of durability for another $130, bringing you to $459 per month, 10x the cost. So you can see that in this case, EFS is 90% less than doing it yourself. Not to mention all the savings and administrative overhead of having to set up and manage. So we've seen strong adoption for EFS IA using all the available policies, and customers like the flexibility to match their file system's behavior to their workload needs. In particular, some customers prefer shorter lifecycle policies to more immediately realize cost savings, while others have longer-lived file life cycles where data is accessed heavily for, say, 1 calendar quarter before it is rarely accessed again. We're always looking for ways to make it even easier for customers to use the cloud while extending reduced pricing. One customer, we have Dagan, who provides science-based solutions and needed shared file storage for their geospatial applications. By moving to EFS IA, they automatically save $10K per month on their bill. OnePax is a biotech company whose product allows radiology information to be shared amongst doctors and patients worldwide. They easily implemented the EFS lifecycle management policy to help further reduce cost and save money. So we've talked about EFS for Linux workloads using the NFS protocol. What about Windows workloads? We have lots of customers running their mission-critical Windows applications on AWS. And according to IDC, almost 2/3 of Windows instances running on the public cloud are running on AWS. This is a combination of the experience we have over 10 years running Windows workloads, the rich set of services we offer, as well as the compelling TCO of AWS. So to support Windows workloads, we first looked to provide a shared file storage service for Windows applications by implementing the SMB protocol on a non-Windows file system, which is what other providers do. But we quickly started to realize that we wouldn't deliver the right experience and full set of features for our customers. And that's because Windows applications, it's the file system itself that's important. By tacking on the SMB protocol to a non-Windows file system doesn't make it Windows file system compatible. For full Windows compatibility and performance, you really need a file system built from the ground up to work with Windows. So based on what our customers told us, we decided the most customer-focused course was to deliver a native Windows compatible offering built on top of Windows Server. So Amazon FSx for Windows File is a fully managed offering built on top of a Windows OS. It allows you to easily lift and shift Windows applications to AWS. And just like EFS, you only pay for the resources used with no upfront cost, minimum commitments, or additional fees. It provides the native Windows compatibility. So by being built on Windows Server, you get native Windows file storage features, and you can access it over SMB. We support Windows file system features that you use today, and this works seamlessly with your Microsoft Active Directory as well. It's also fast, so built on SSD storage, Amazon FSx provides fast performance with per file system throughput of up to 2 GB per second, tens of thousands of IOPS, and consistent sub-millisecond latencies. Similar to EFS, you could pick throughput levels independent of your file system size. We offer 9 different throughput levels. It goes all the way up to 2 GB per second, and that's just baseline performance. Performance also bursts, so you can see even higher levels of performance beyond your provisioned throughput amounts. Performance can scale also up to tens of gigabytes per second as well by using DFS namespaces. And this will allow you to access hundreds of petabytes of data under a single global namespace. FSx is also enterprise ready, so we provide the features, performance, and security that enterprise applications like your ERP, CRM, various custom .NET application servers, and home directories rely on. It provides the throughput, IOPS, and consistent sub-millisecond latencies needed for those enterprise workloads. It also has broad accessibility. So by supporting the SMB protocol, you can connect your file system to Amazon EC2, both Windows and Linux instances, VMware Cloud on AWS, Amazon Workspaces, and Amazon AppStream 2.0. And with Microsoft Active Directory support, you get integration with your current Windows environment, and distributed file system replication will support your multi-AZ deployments as well. Amazon FSx supports creating multiple file shares for each file system across multiple instances. And as mentioned before, it's fully managed and simple to deploy. So you no longer have to worry about setting up and provisioning your file servers, your storage volumes, installing your Windows files, Windows software, performing software updates and patches, and manually performing backups. Within minutes and a few clicks in the console, you can easily create a fully managed file system with the automatic backups through our management console, CLI, or AWS SDK. It's also secure and compliant. So all of your data is automatically encrypted, both at rest and in transit. Amazon FSx for Windows File Server is PCI DSS compliant, SOC and HIPAA eligible. You can control user access with Windows Access Control List, and all of your data is protected, automatic, highly durable daily backups. It also supports shadow copies for file level and folder level backups and restores. And then we also use Windows Access Control List for file access control, as well as NCFS permissions. Integration with CloudTrail monitors and logs your API calls, letting you see actions taken by users on your FSx resources. Lastly, it's cost effective. So you only pay for the resources you use with no minimum commitments or upfront fees. You can launch and delete file systems in minutes, making it easy to respond to changing business needs. Amazon FSx is fully managed and reduces the time and resources needed to manage your file storage. So let's talk a little bit more about what native Windows compatibility means. Built on Windows Server, you get native Windows file storage, delivering the compatibility, features, and performance needed to run Windows applications. We also provide NCFS file systems that can be accessed from up to thousands of compute instances using the SMB protocol. We fully support key NCFS file system features, including what other solutions commonly don't support, like extended attributes, file change notifications, alternate data streams, and hard and soft links. We support SMB 3.1.1, which is backwards compatible with all SMB 2.0 and up clients. SMB performance features SMB multi-channel, where a single client can establish multiple TCP connections to drive higher throughput, and SMB directory leasing, where a client can own the cache for a particular directory. Amazon FSx works with Microsoft Active Directory to integrate your file system with your Windows environments, and it supports the use of distributed file system replication, DFS, to enable multi-AZ deployments, and also DFS namespaces, or DFSN, to enable namespaces that can span across many file servers. And recently, we announced the capacity to join FSx directly to your own managed Active Directory. FSx for Windows already works with our AWS Microsoft AD managed offering, but customers were asking for a direct join capability to more easily integrate with their on-premises or in-cloud managed Active Directory environments. We now offer direct integration for on-premises or other self-managed AD or Active Directory to make lift and shift even easier. This feature complements our existing support for AWS managed Microsoft AD, offering more flexibility to easily lift and shift and take advantage of the speed and agility of the AWS ecosystem by extending your existing Windows environments to save time. Leveraging your familiar environments to directly join your Amazon FSx file system to your Microsoft Active Directory more quickly and easily, resulting in less time coordinating app migrations with security and identity teams. We can also simplify your move without modifications. You can continue to use your existing user and group identities and file and folder level security settings unchanged for an easy lift and shift. We also offer automatic replication with DFSR. So DFSR can now be allowed to replicate between on-prem file systems and Amazon FSx, as well as between FSx regions for use cases like migration, cloud bursting, backup, and disaster recovery. There's three aspects to the pricing for FSx for Windows. One is storage capacity, which is priced at 13 cents per gigabyte per month in US East 1. You also have throughput capacity. So there's 9 throughput levels starting at 8 megabytes per second, going all the way up to 2 gigabytes per second of throughput. And again, that's just baseline throughput. You also have burst, but you're charged at $2.20 per megabyte per second per month. And then you have backup pricing, which is an additional 5 cents per gigabyte per month. So let's look at an example TCO. Let's say you have a 1 terabyte file system that needs 8 megabytes per second of baseline throughput. And we'll also assume that although you're provisioning a terabyte of storage, you only have 500 gigabytes of data that needs to be backed up that's inside that file system. So we take the cost of the 1 terabyte file system and we multiply it by 13 cents per gigabyte per month. You get $133. The throughput charge, 8 megabytes per second times $2.20 brings you an additional $18 per month. So your total is $151. If you add the backup cost of that 500 gigabytes of actual data that needs to be backed up, that'll add an additional $25, bringing your total to $176. Pretty cheap. Now let's look at how customers are using Amazon FSx for Windows File Server. Customers like Neiman Marcus and Cube Research Technologies are seeing improved manageability, scalability, performance, and lower cost compared to on-prem. Companies of all sizes are using Amazon FSx for Windows File Server, including Infor, who's a longtime Windows on AWS customer. They chose FSx for Windows for the time to market and operational efficiency from a fully managed Windows File Server offering AWS. Neiman Marcus leverages fully managed FSx for Windows to accelerate an enterprise lift and shift applications and improve performance. So in Neiman Marcus's case specifically, they're experiencing slow performance with their business critical file-based document processing application and needed a quick cloud migration solution. So by moving their legacy window business applications and associated file shares to AWS with help from our partner BizCloud experts, from on-prem to FSx, the company was able to quickly take advantage of the automation and scalability of the cloud, as well as to resolve their legacy performance challenges. We also have Doxilent. Doxilent is a leading provider of electronic document control software and quality software applications with over 30 years of experience. In this case, document control was part of the application and the lifeblood of their offering, and it was called Ensure. Ensure is typically hosted as a standalone single instance, or a single instant hosts the file server, the SQL server, application server, and web server. In 2014, they moved their offering to AWS Cloud, and they've been growing 20 to 30%, and it's the fastest growing segment of their business. And since Ensure has been hosted in the AWS Cloud, their team has been improved by the way they have improved the way their offering is handed to their customers, and they want to increase their customer experience. But one of their larger customers needed a more robust environment than that single server operation. So they engaged a partner, Eagle Dream, to create an enterprise level architecture where they have their own file server, their own database server, their own web and app server. So by breaking this up and giving their file server full performance independent of competing resources on that single server, they're able to provide a much better experience for their customers. And FSx made this possible by offering a fully managed file server. They didn't want to have to go through the complexity of setting up and managing their own file server. And this is going to allow them to scale even more rapidly as they have more customers adopt their cloud model and start to ramp. So let's next talk about our other file storage offering we mentioned at the beginning is Amazon FSx for Lustre. So with EFS and FSx for Windows, we provide customers with file systems that are great for the vast majority of business workloads. However, customers with HPC or other high performance workloads are coming to us and asking for help addressing their need for a fully managed cloud file system to meet their needs. Many high performance workloads require the performance of a scale out parallel file system. Operating these files on-prem or in the cloud yourself requires specialized expertise and administrative overhead. This requires you to provision storage servers and tune complex performance parameters. With Amazon FSx for Lustre, you get a fully managed, high-performance parallel file system. The performance is ideal for high-performance workloads with high throughput and low latency needs, like HPC, machine learning, and media processing or rendering workloads. With Amazon FSx for Lustre, within minutes and a few clicks in the console, you can launch and run a fully managed high-performance file system that can process massive data sets, and you only pay for the resources used, with no minimum commitments, upfront hardware or software cost, or additional fees. FSx for Lustre provides throughput of up to hundreds of gigabytes per second, millions of IOPS, and consistent sub-millisecond latencies. It works for data sets both large and small. For small data sets that need just high performance and low latency, you can provision data sets in the low terabytes. And for large data sets, we can scale all the way up to petabytes, offering that hundreds of gigabytes per second of throughput. And when you have spikes in capacity demand in your data center, you can also burst into Amazon FSx for Lustre using Amazon Direct Connect or VPN to quickly add additional file storage and compute to your workloads, helping you complete your on-prem jobs even faster. And just like EFS and FSx for Windows, it's fully managed. So we manage the hardware provisioning, the installation of the software, configuration, maintenance, and all the complex performance tuning that you would otherwise have to experience with a parallel file system. So this allows you to focus on your compute and your nodes, and not so much on the file system. Connect it to your nodes, and it just works. It's also cost effective. It's used to optimize for short-term compute-intensive type workloads by providing fast local storage. Using Amazon FSx, you can spin up and down file systems as needed, and using S3 to store your long-term data sets. So by keeping your data sets on S3 for high durability and low cost, and only spinning up the file system when you need it, where FSx will handle the movement of data from S3 to the file system by linking it to an S3 bucket or prefix. It saves you time and overhead from having to move the data and write scripts to move the data. And it allows you to commit your data back to S3 when you're done. So you can tear down your file system and only pay for those resources when you need it, allowing you to also shut down all of your compute nodes and save on compute capacity as well. And then lastly, it's secure and compliant. So with FSx for Lustre, your data is automatically encrypted at rest. It's PCI compliant, HIPAA eligible, SOC compliance, making it easy to meet regulatory standards. We also support virtual private cloud, so you can launch your FSx file system resources in your virtual network that you share between your organization's data center and AWS. All right, so that covers all the file systems on AWS. So the next question customers have is, great, we love the managed file offerings. This reduces a lot of complex and operational overhead from having to set this up and manage it yourself. The cost and TCO look great, and we love the features and performance that you offer. How do I move the data into AWS? So there's a lot of options for data transfer. We have 11 different ways, more than any other cloud provider, to get data in, depending on the nature of the data and the application. We have Direct Connect, which is a private connection between on-prem data center and in an AWS region. For streaming data, you can use Kinesis Firehose. If you want to send the data in bulk, let's say you have petabytes of data, or hundreds of terabytes of data, you could use Snowball, Snowball Edge, or Snowmobile. We also have Data Sync, I'll talk about here in a few slides, but it's a new data transfer service that automates transferring and synchronizing data from an on-prem storage array over the network to S3 and EFS at speeds up to 10 times faster than open source tools like rsync and robocopy. And then for companies that need to use SFTP for a secure protocol to move their data, we have AWS Transfer for SFTP. No matter the use case, we have a data transfer method that fits perfectly. We also provide guidance on our website for using traditional tools like rsync and robocopy. So let's look at Data Sync. I'm not going to drill deep into each of the data migration offerings, but I did want to highlight Data Sync specifically, which was launched last year at reInvent, and is a data transfer service where you could quickly load file data into AWS and make it easy for you to automate moving data between on-premise storage and Amazon S3 or Amazon EFS. Data Sync automatically handles many of the tasks related to data transfers that can slow down migrations or burden your IT operations, including running your own instances, handling encryption, managing scripts, network optimization, and data integrity validation. Additionally, you can use Data Sync to S3 for HPC, machine learning, and M&E workflows, and leverage FSX for Luster's integration with S3 to quickly spin up a high-performance file system that'll automatically migrate that data from S3 into FSX. It's fast, so you could use it to transfer data speeds up to 10 times faster than open source tools. It's fully automated. We offer automatic encryption and data validation, and we set up the management of data transfer process and infrastructure required for high-performance secure data transfer. All of this minimizes the in-house development and management otherwise needed for fast, reliable, and secure transfers. One-time migrations or ongoing transfers are supported. It's flexible, so you could configure to meet your specific needs, including bandwidth throttling and copying source permissions and metadata. It's integrated with AWS, so it's easy to deploy the Data Sync agent on-prem, connect it to a file system or storage array, and then select Amazon EFS or S3 as your storage target and start moving the data. And it's secure and compliant. So all of your data is encrypted in transit and at rest. And for each transfer, the service performs integrity checks. These checks ensure that the data written to your destination matches the data read from your source, validating consistency. Data Sync also makes sure that your data arrives securely, intact, and ready to use. And with Data Sync, you spend less money. At 4 cents per gig, it's priced pretty competitively. You could use it to fully manage your data transfer and scale based on usage. Plus, the agents are automatically updated and patched, saving you administrative overhead. A 100 gigabyte file system, for example, or migration into EFS will cost you $4. So that covers the data migration. To get started on your cloud journey, we have our AWS pricing calculator. It's available on our website. It's also built into the web pages for Amazon EFS and FSX with a built-in cost optimizer. For additional resources, we also have our AWS storage blog that we launched earlier this year. Great resources for getting started, including a great getting started post with links to 10-minute tutorials for Amazon EFS, FSX for Windows File Server, as well as other storage services like S3 and Glacier. We also have lots of training resources, including GitHub, where we have workshops that are self-guided. And then the Getting Started or Resources tab on our website as well is another great resources. So here's some of the links to EFS and FSX for Windows pages, as well as blogs and the calculator. So please check these out. We have a wealth of resources, and feel free to reach out to your account team for additional assistance. And then lastly, I'll leave you with our reInvents coming up here in Las Vegas on December 2nd through December 6th. We have a lot of different breakout sessions across our entire storage portfolio. We have deep dive sessions. We have workshops, chalk talks where you can come and ask a lot of questions. We have our leadership session, which is our storage state of the union, where we'll be talking about all the new things in our portfolio and exciting things that are happening across AWS storage services. We have what's new in AWS file storage that will also cover some of the new announcements. And then we'll have some sessions on how to use AWS storage for on-premises file-based applications with a repeat session as well. So with that, thank you for your time and joining and listening today. We look forward to hearing from you and seeing you at reInvent, and have a great day. Thanks.